is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes,
He's going for it.
Yes! Oh my goal! What a goal!
And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And yes, another podcast with 2 guests. And yeah, you guys guessed it. Just more of the same topics that we've been talking about. But, you know, that's okay because over the weekend, we're recording this podcast on Sunday, January 23rd. Over the weekend, you know, we got some huge news for the Philadelphia Union for a potential player that they're going to sign. And I shouldn't even say potential. I think it's 100% going to go through. And we'll talk about that player here in a little bit later. Kacper Przybylko has officially been announced by Chicago Fire, which, you know, I'm a little bit surprised they announced that on the weekend because I feel like when you make those kind of announcements, people are out on the weekends and people aren't really going to be checking social media. So your engagement on social media is not going to be as high as it would, I feel like, during the week. But maybe I'm wrong. You know, there's a reason why I don't have tens of thousands of followers on social media. But, you know, we're not here to talk about followers. We are here, though, to talk about all the news for the Philadelphia Union, to get both of these guys' thoughts. And both of these guys have been on the podcast. They've played against each other on our trivia show. And don't worry, there is no trivia questions. Maybe I should throw one out there for you guys. But they are Mr. Michael Van Zant and Harry Mumma. Harry and Michael, how are you guys doing?
Doing well, Todd. Thank you for having us on. Definitely no trivia, man. I'm out.
No trivia. Fun to be on, though, and especially after, like you said, a wild day yesterday.
I know, right? It's like, I do feel bad because I feel like it's been a lot of the same questions I've been asking people. And I do feel bad because I'm like, you know, people might be getting tired of hearing me ask the same questions. But, you know, at the same time, too, you know, you guys coming on, you guys haven't given your thoughts. And so you guys might say something different than what somebody else has said. And so, you know, at the same time, I do think it's okay because you guys might see something that, oh, I didn't think about it that way, and I can say something different. So it is the off season, so you're not going to get a lot of news except for, you know, yesterday. I mean, sell one player, and now you're linked with another within an hour. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But you guys have been on the podcast before. Like I said, you guys have talked about how you got into the Philadelphia Union. But, you know, if people haven't heard those episodes in the past, you know, I suggest going back to those and listening how Harry and Michael got into the team. But I'll do you guys a favor. I'll let these guys explain once again, how they got into the Philadelphia Union. And Michael, I'll let you go first. So how'd you get into the Union?
Yeah, so I think it was 2015. See, Lincoln was shot in 60. Yeah, 2015. And my one buddy kind of got a like the friend group together of who was interested in doing Union season tickets. And I didn't know too much about soccer, honestly, at that point, but I was like, and Sons of Ben, very cheap and reasonable as it still is. So I was like, yeah, I'm in. And I just kind of fell in love with this, with the atmosphere, which especially with your last couple episodes, Todd, I know I'm not alone in that. That seemed to really drive a few people into the Union. And people I've, gotten interested in there too, is just the atmosphere. There really is kind of a almost tangible feel to it of it being your club, where with kind of the bigger Philadelphia teams, you can kind of be almost a number, but here it's a little bit different. So since then, kind of been strong and been looking around, my girl would say, maybe too many Union stuff hanging around, but definitely a diehard now. And, it's been some rough years at the beginning, but man, it's been a lot of fun now.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun the last 4 years, and I don't see why 2022 will be any different. This could potentially be the best year ever for the Philadelphia Union. At least on paper, it looks that way if we don't lose anybody else. But Harry, I know you've given your story before. How'd you get into the Philadelphia Union?
Yeah, thanks, Todd. I'm a little bit older than both of you guys. Proby made the joke about Lincoln. I actually voted for him. So when I've been playing soccer since I was 6 or 7 till my last game was a little after my 50th birthday. But there used to be soccer made in Germany in the 70s, which is where I fell in love with Bayern Munich and Franz Beckenbauer, and I had his shoes and everything. And I was a soccer guy. I actually remember going to Adams games, and I remember going to Fury and Fever games. So when I heard that the team was coming to the Philadelphia, even before we actually got the team, I was all in. I don't really remember much at the first year at Lincoln Financial Field. That probably is just a blur, or maybe CTE kicking in. But ever since then, just been loving. And as Mike said, it was tough early on, when we were everybody's get right team. But the last 2 years have been just absolutely phenomenal. The bandwagon still has plenty of room for people to jump on, so we're willing to let them come on. But I agree with you, Todd, man. Or maybe it was Mike. I was a little nervous about this year. This could be a phenomenal year if things are going right. So, happy to be back on. At least you're not going to ask me any true or false questions, so I can at least look you in the eyes now. I feel better. So.
Absolutely. It's a lot of pressure. And for people that are like, what are you guys talking about? Like, we've done 2 seasons so far of Trivia Podcast for the Philadelphia Union. And I decided, okay, look, I just want to talk to Union fans during this off season. We don't have enough time to get through, 16 plus games. I think it's a lot more. Maybe it's like 20. I don't know. And it's a lot of pressure, right? Especially when you hear that timer going, you only have like 25 seconds to answer 5 questions. It's like, think. And then you get true or false. And it's like, okay, I got a 50-50 shot. But it's like, if you get 2 wrong, it's like, oh, dang, a lot of pressure now. I mean, it's like, a lot of times it's just a guess. And then it comes down to that final category where I always ask you guys the player. You guys got 5 hints. And if somebody's like, oh, I'm thinking a little bit ahead of the other person, puts a lot of pressure on people. So it's a lot of fun to host that. But yeah, I can't imagine being a contestant. I mean, I would do horrible. I definitely want to win the first game. So, Mike, you've been.
But your research
finals.
behind it, Todd, is incredible. Like some of those questions are geez, I wouldn't even have thought of that as like a question. Like, who has the most yellow cards after the 84th minute or something? And it's like, I don't know how your research on it's very good.
Yeah, exactly. It takes a lot and everything. I don't want to go out here and spreading false information about the Philadelphia Union, because I feel like it would be so easy just to come up with whatever questions I want. But then I was always afraid, okay, what if I have a contestant like, oh, no, that's 100% wrong. You were wrong. So I always like to say, where I get my information from. And so don't blame me. Blame the websites where I go. So I'm just going off of the information the Philadelphia Union have given me on the website. So don't get mad at me, get mad at the team. But like you guys said, we are not here. And let's go ahead and talk about last season, right? You sell Mark McKenzie, you sell Brenden Aaronson, and you're like, oh boy, we're losing our best player in midfield. We're losing our best center back. How can Jack Elliott come in here and fill in for Mark McKenzie when Jack Elliott doesn't play as a left-footed center back? And we didn't know how he was going to play, and the Philadelphia Union put him as a left-footed center back, plays phenomenal. I think him and Jacob Glesnes, I think both of them should have been up for Team of the Year as the 2 center backs. I think we're very lucky to have these 2 guys as our center backs. I think they're 2 of the best in the league, but maybe there's some biasy from the voters with Miles Robinson and Walker Zimmerman, since they're United States men's national team players. But we won't go down there this episode, and maybe another episode we can talk about how maybe some of the voters have an objective to try to get national team players into the Team of the Year, but we won't do that now. But you look and you see Brenden Aaronson's just absolutely killing it for Salzburg. I think Jim Curtin told us that not only at Salzburg, but in the entire world, he's in the 1% for pressing numbers. And that is phenomenal. I mean, he led the team last season on 2020 for the Philadelphia Union. He was up there in 2019 because, look, in 2019, Brenden Aaronson wasn't supposed to start. We had Marco Fabian in here. He gets a red card, I believe it was. So it's like, okay, well, Brenden Aaronson, this is your turn. Brenden never lost that spot. Once he had that start in Atlanta, nutmegs Brad Guzan, the sky was the limit for this kid. And it sucks we only had him for 2 seasons, but you could see the talent when he was here for the Philadelphia Union, and the Philadelphia Union got an absolutely whale of an offer. And now you see the reports with Leeds offering tons of money for Brenden Aaronson. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But it's like, how do you replace these 2 guys, Mark McKenzie and Brenden Aaronson? You see the Union go out and sign Leon Flock and Daniel Gazdag a little bit halfway through the season to try to replace Brenden Aaronson. And look, it sounds a lot easier. Oh, replacing Brenden Aaronson, but no, I mean, it really isn't when you look at his advanced numbers. And Liam Flock, I mean, he was the closest thing to Brenden Aaronson in terms of pressing, but he didn't have the offensive abilities like Brenden Aaronson had. So there's a little bit of a loss there. But then Daniel Gazdag, I think, brings a little bit more in the attacking third than Brenden Aaronson did at his time here for the Philadelphia Union. And to reach the semifinals in the CCL, to go ahead and reach the conference finals against New York City, we won 2 playoff games. You know, we blew our chance of finishing in second place, but then we finally somehow got on track to finish second place in the Eastern Conference, tied again for the fewest goals in MLS. We were tied second with Colorado last season with 35. Kacper Przybylko scores 30. I said 36. Whew. Can you guys imagine if he scored 36 goals in one season? That would have been
we
crazy.
wouldn't be trading him if he scored 36 goals.
No.
Maybe more liked on Twitter then.
Yeah, absolutely. 6 goals in the Champions League. And then to top it all off, you have the whole COVID situation against New York City. But yeah, overall, I was super happy with the season. Wasn't sure how last season was going to go. But yeah, no, I'm super confident going into this season, a lot more confident than I was last season. But what are you guys' thoughts on last season for the Philadelphia Union?
Honestly, I was pleasantly surprised with last season. I kind of thought last season would be a transition. You know, like you said, Todd, we lost Brenden, we lost Mark. Jack was transitioning into a new role. You know, I know we're going to talk about right back later, but we had a new right back out there, and we kind of didn't know what was going to happen. We knew that the young kids were coming up in Paxton and Quinn and Jack and everybody. And so for me, it was an unknown. Yeah, it was our first time in CCL, but I mean, we were a young team. I mean, outside of, I'm just looking down at minutes last year, and outside of Ali Bedoya and Andre Blake, those are the only guys really approaching or over 30, but even approaching 30, you know, a very, very young team. And then to come out and go to the semifinals and play a Club America team as tough as anybody, I think, in MLS could have played then. And then let's face it, you know, the loss to NYCFC in the playoffs was a farce. I mean, you know, if the Philadelphia Union were named LAFC or Atlanta United or Inter Miami, that game would have been postponed. There's no way they would have played that game. But, you know, we don't have that Carlos Vela star. We don't have that Jose Martinez star, Joseph Martinez star. So, you know, there's no reason to keep us in it. You know, the script writers just didn't have it in for us. So, but overall, I was very happy. You know, I think this team needed to improve a little bit. I think they're on their way. And as I've said on this podcast many times, in Ernst I trust. So I'm all in with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Before you go, Michael, I do want to say, I mean, it is crazy. I mean, you brought up the minutes played. I mean, we played so many minutes last season. I mean, Jacob Glesnes played all 40 games last season, played the most minutes out of all players with 3,599 minutes played between CCL and MLS. That's not including the playoffs. I didn't include those numbers, but I mean, it is crazy to see that many starts in the regular season in CCL. You see Jack Elliott, 39 starts out of 39 games. He was one away from going every single game this season. And then to see, I mean, Kai Wagner's up there too, 39 games played. To lose most of our roster, and it does hurt, most of our roster against New York City. And to see us actually fight against New York City, score the first goal. And I don't know if either of you guys were there at the game or if you guys weren't at the game. I mean, I'm sure it was pretty loud on the TV, but like before the game started, I mean, Kyle talked about it. The fans were cheering as loud as I've ever heard them cheer, especially before a game. I mean, when the players are warming up, I've never heard that before. But I think every single fan in that stadium knew what that moment meant. They knew that we had to be behind those players. And going into that game, that's what I was afraid about. I didn't know if fans knew how big of a game this was, how much those players needed us to cheer for them from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. And even when we conceded the second goal, I mean, the fans were behind them. And you don't see that a lot of times. When the Philadelphia Union concede first, you see people have their arms crossed. You see them get quiet. They don't want to cheer. It's until the Philadelphia Union started creating chances when people start chanting again. But that didn't happen against New York City. And I'm so proud of the effort every single player gave against New York City. And I just hope that's my hope for this season, 2020, is that last game against New York City, I hope we can bring that same energy to every single game this season in MLS play, because if we have that energy, there's no way that teams are leaving Subaru Park, in my opinion, with a point, because we made that place a fortress throughout the playoffs. And I feel like the New York Red Bulls game was super loud. Then you go to the Nashville game, it goes louder than it was against New York Red Bulls. And then you get to the New York City game, it's as loud as it's ever been in Subaru Park, probably the loudest atmosphere it has ever been. So just really, really happy of the effort that the players gave. And I think all those players will use that as a stepping stone, which can only help us going forward this season. Michael, though, what are your thoughts on last season for the Union?
Yeah, that last season, I agree with completely with Harry, and I'll be even more completely frank. Is I guess halfway through the season, a little bit more halfway through, I was genuinely worried we weren't going to make playoffs. There was a streak where we were not playing particularly well, and just a lot of the transition moments, and even going in to put a lot of pressure on the players we lost, which were the top blue chip prospect academy guys, and going, oh, well, our academy was still good, we'll go back in. I'm like, it's good, but like you're asking a lot of those kids, and the kids really did deliver well. Quinn Sullivan was spectacular. Paxton really showed a lot of promise at the end. And Jack McGlynn, I wish we saw a little bit more of him. I know with injuries and stuff we weren't able to, but and then I think probably he will go down as the most underrated player in Union history is Jack Elliott. I think every time he gets the name call, he is the most dependable center back there. He may not have the rocket goals that Glesnes has, or someone like kind of the flashy abilities that some of the other center backs had in the past, like Mark and that potential, but he's just solid and dependable, and I'm really glad he resigned, because honestly, you lose Mark and you don't have that replacement for him. I don't know what's going to happen there. And then the other thing is, and you've said it very well multiple times on your podcast, Todd, about you have to give guys time when they come over with Gazdag, and see what happens when you finally do give him a half a season to adjust. He had a lot of playing time that season before. You're probably just tired and having to get adjusted to a new league, and I don't know the Hungarian league that well, but I do think, just like we'll probably talk about Norway, that this is a step up. Not Norway, Denmark, but this is a step up in those leagues. And you just having to learn the playing styles. That's going to take some time. You've got to give a lot of credit to not only him, but Leon Flock was just dynamite from the get-go. And to have him do that was incredible and very important for us. And then the last point I'll say is that the two guys you mentioned, and Harry mentioned Blake, just being, still the greatest Union player ever, and continuing that stance. And I'll keep saying it. I do think he's getting he's at statue level outside of Subaru Park now. And the other guy, Alejandro Bedoya, I was very worried that last year he would be kind of starting to break down. And you can argue at the end he was getting a little tired, and maybe it's time to start subbing him in more. And I'm on that camp, but he still really was very dependable for us. So there's a lot of very positive things from last season that were just almost unexpected. And I 100% agree with Harry. That was a bigger name. We wouldn't have had that happen to us against NYCFC. And also, if the other leagues that it happened right after with the NFL and NBA, and they were postponing games, and the EPL did like a few days after, if we just had that happen a week after, it may have been a different cause. It really is a travesty. I don't take anything away from NYCFC. It's not their fault. They didn't make the decision. They play who they play. But Don Garber is a brave man for being at the Sons of Ben lot after that decision, because, geez Louise, I still can't get over it. I don't think I will get over it until we win the MLS Cup, honestly, because that was our chance. I don't know if we beat Portland, but that was our chance at least to make it to the final.
Yeah, real quick, Todd, and So number one, Mike was at the NYCFC game. I know that because he had my tickets, because I never thought that they would be there in a final on December 5th, and I put together a family outing. And Mike brought up something else that I wanted to say. You know, Daniel Gazdag played 3,800 minutes in between the 20 and 21 season. I mean, wow. He paid 2,500 in the Hungarian league and 1,300. You know, and I know, Todd, you've been on here defending him, and every time you are, I'm sitting here like a bobblehead doll going, yep. You know, the amount of grief that guy got for the amount of minutes he played, and even when he was here, it's not like he was tripping over himself and handing the ball away and committing. I mean, yeah, he wasn't crisp. Okay, anybody going to a new team isn't going to be crisp. Coming into a league, I mean, we have seen guys come into this league and just not acclimate to it very well. It's a completely different style of play. I mean, if you watch European soccer on Saturday morning and then watch the Union Saturday afternoon, it's not the same game. It is a completely different game. So to think that he's going to come in here and be Lionel Messi day one is stupid.
It is so stupid. I mean, what? A couple of years ago when Steven Gerrard was playing for LA Galaxy, the first thing that he said was, yeah, this league's a lot physical than I thought it was going to be. And I think, you know, you still have these people in Europe that still think, oh, it's a retirement league. Oh, it's just MLS. But you have a well-established player that has won the Champions League, that is a Liverpool legend, with Liverpool say, yeah, that league's a lot more physical than what I thought it was. And then here, add this on top too. These players in Europe are playing in such small countries compared to the United States, where you're flying cross-country on charter flights, where they're in Europe and they're taking buses or they're taking trains, where they're not used to flying cross-country multiple times on these charter flights, where that's a lot of wear and tear on your legs and everything to be crammed up in this plane and everything. And I think that's one thing a lot of fans in Europe don't think about at all. I think that's a lot of times when you get these older players coming to MLS, which I know hasn't happened the last couple of years, they don't think about that. They just think, oh, I'm going to come here, collect a paycheck. Look what Higuain's doing with Miami. Nothing. And this guy thought it was going to be a cakewalk and really had it coming to him, especially when El Brujo got right up into his face and everything when they came to Subaru Park. And it's like, oh, wow, these guys are actually, they actually take this league serious. Of course they do. Like, these guys want to get into Europe, so they're going to give their all here in MLS. And in hopes of scouts in Europe to see, oh, wow, look how Kai Wagner played. Look how Kacper Przybylko played for the Philadelphia Union. I think they can come back to Europe and offer something back in Europe. So, of course, these younger players that we scout in South America and Europe that come to MLS who didn't get the most chances in Europe or in South America, they come here to establish their name or to rediscover their careers. And now here they are getting another chance in Europe. And yeah, I really wish that whole mindset would change with people in Europe, but I think slowly but surely, I think it will. And I've said it before on the podcast where I think, you know, maybe 10 years. Give it 10 years, and I think MLS will be up there with the top leagues in the world. So you can see where the Philadelphia Union came in 2010, where the league is now. I mean, it's night and day difference, right? I can remember when David Beckham was here in 2007. I mean, this league was a joke back then compared to what it is now. And I'm glad, you know, MLS has done a lot of right from then to now, but they've also done a lot of wrong. And you know, the one thing I've always complained about is they need to extend the salary cap, allow teams to spend more money, to tell teams like the Philadelphia Union, teams like Vancouver, who don't like to spend a lot of money, like, hey, look, there's a minimum amount of money you guys got to spend. If you guys can't spend it, sell your teams, get out of here, because we want owners in here that can spend money. We know that the Atlanta United, the LAFCs, the LA Galaxies have money to spend. And if there was no salary cap, we know these guys would just spend. And some of these younger players probably wouldn't get chances because they'd go into Europe and sign these big name players that are near the end of their careers. And so I get why there's a rule for DP players, and I'm fine with that. Maybe add another DP spot. And maybe it does come here in a couple years, but yeah, MLS isn't what it once was. And I think for probably all the people that listen to this podcast, they probably agree with what I say there, and I'm sure you guys do as well. And
Inter Miami fans agree.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
But my only thing is I wouldn't like to see the salary cap go up too much, because I don't want MLS, and this is what it almost became 2 years ago. I don't want MLS to be like the Premier League. The Premier League, you've got the big four. And let's face it, Todd, our club is no longer one of the big four. I'm a United fan as much as you are, but you know, they just can't hang with the cities and the Liverpools and the Chelseas and
Crystal
soon to
Palace.
be Newcastle with Piff, and you've got these big teams over there, and one of those three is going to win it. I don't want MLS to be, Miami's or Atlanta's going to win it or LFC's going to win it because they got a billionaire owner. I kind of like the salary cap. Yeah, I'd like it to see it go up a little bit. I'd like to see the union, but I think they are. I mean, if this rumor for Mikael Uhre or whatever it is Uhre is true, then okay, they're starting to spend a little bit. But they did with Jamiro, they did with Daniel, and the contract agreements with Jacob and Jack. I mean, they are tying up their nucleus. So
one last thing I would say about that is when you brought up, you watch Premier League in the morning, then you watch MLS at night. And I think the Premier League is really predictable. I mean, whoever Manchester City plays, they're going to win, right? You look at Liverpool, odds are they're probably going to win. Where you look at teams in MLS, I couldn't tell you who's going to win, right? I mean, you expect the home team to win, but nobody expected Inter Miami to come into Subaru Park last season and beat us, right? And who expected Portland to lose at home in the MLS Cup final to New York City? So I think this league's so much less predictable than what some of the other leagues in Europe are. And I think that is good for U.S. fans, for MLS fans, because it's such an entertaining league.
Yeah, and one last thought on this topic, Todd, is I think what really has helped too the quality is, Jesse, please, you can get your opinion on too, is the academies being at the point when Beckham came in and there was that fanfare. There really weren't that existent or piping out the players they are now with the Union and Real Salt Lake and FC Dallas having a good academy. They just don't know how to really implement it after developing those players. But having these academies shine, NYCFC academy's been pumping out some too. That really is not just driving up the U.S. men's national team. It's driving up the MLS because a lot of these guys start here and go. And yeah, it's kind of like an Eredivisie or
10 to 20
of a developmental league right now. I think that's fine because you want that parity, and you just can't overnight be one of the big heavy hitters like the EPL. And the EPL also is just kind of becoming its own. It's almost like there is no Big Five anymore. It's the EPL. So how's the MLS going to catch up to the Big Five when the EPL is floating away from there? So right now, I agree with you. 10 years from now, absolutely. But even right now, people who kind of poo-poo it and think, oh, the MLS, there's not quality there, they're completely ignoring these academy player kids coming in. And then, like we'll talk on earlier, the two guys that we just signed recently, Gazdag and Mikael Uhre, they're not old cigars in their mouths guys. They're guys, Hungarian League and Denmark League Players of the Year coming over here. That's something, on their national team. That's something to be excited about, that the MLS is getting those kind of guys too, where it used to be the guys that are just looking for a paycheck. There are the guys that are looking to prove themselves to get back to Europe. So in a bigger league in Europe, like Kai Wagner. So I'm very, very excited for the MLS, and I'm one that I really do enjoy the MLS product as a whole, and I think it's one of the most underrated things out there in soccer is just the product as a whole.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and I can say this is the first year ever that I watch every single MLS playoff game, minus when we had to go to our games and everything. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy what MLS has become, what MLS is becoming, and you're always going to get an entertaining game. So let's go on and talk about news. I know, Harry, you had a lot to say about Ray Gaddis coming out of retirement and signing for FC Cincinnati on a 2-year deal with an option for the 2024 season. I've already given my opinion on Ray Gaddis the last 3 episodes, so there's no need for you guys to hear what I have to say about Ray Gaddis this time. I want to hear what Michael and I want to hear what Harry has to say. So, Harry, what are your thoughts about Ray Gaddis coming out of retirement for Cincinnati?
Yeah, I will try to keep it PG-13 for you, Todd. But I got to admit, I'm very disappointed in Ray. I think the fans and I forget who it is. I think it may have been Kevin Kincaid said it best. Ray's not going to win you a game. Ray's not going to lose you a game. But he's a good back. And I think this city treated him well. I mean, let's face it, he had as many goals as I did during his career here, which is tough to do because even when I played as a 40-something-year-old, you'd have one go off your leg. But, for him to retire and say he wants to walk away and then come back and go to Cincinnati, I don't know. That leaves a really bad taste in my mouth. And I always thought Ray was somebody who was going to be, he was never going to be in the Ring of Honor, but he was going to be, a player well thought of. And now I think he's left a bad taste in my mouth. I think he's left a bad taste in other people's mouth. And if he thinks he's going to get a warm welcome from everybody when he comes back to Subaru Park, he's sadly mistaken.
Yeah, I agree with Harry. He was at the point where people were arguing, hey, is this guy Ring of Honor material? And I'm one of the bigger Ray fans. I always was like, maybe not. Maybe not. Definitely not now. The whole one team, one club thing was a huge thing with Ray. Obviously, the Chris Albright, Pat Noonan connection there was huge. And I guess there's loyalty there to an extent, and I understand him. But the one part I really don't understand is, one, why would you quit a league or a team that was just won the Supporter Shield and is going up, and maybe it was because of playing time, or maybe there was some personal things there. I know he got the Harvard degree and he's trying to be more business, but to come back to one, a bad team, and two, this whole, he'll get playing time and guaranteed. They just signed Elvis Powell, who, like you said on your pass too, is kind of a carbon copy, a little bit better of an offensive guy, a little bit worse of a defensive guy. I love Ray. I think Jim Curtin said before, like a few years ago, he was one of the best one-on-one defenders in the MLS. And I really do believe he was, but he didn't offer anything or very little offensively. And now, Cincinnati had a historically bad defense, but I can't see Ray getting that much time there. I do think he'll get a few games, but I don't know. I think I could get a team better than here. I was listening to the MLS Aces podcast, and they were ripping their draft too, of like, why are you going after, they got like a goalkeeper with this, I think, second pick, and it's like, that's the one spot you actually have depth. Like, why are you signing like a third term goalkeeper? It doesn't make any sense what they're doing as a whole. And then re-signing Sir Points a lot with Menadunian, who's like way over the hill at this point. They're not at a part where they need veteran presence, I believe. Like, they have it. Elvis Powell alone would have been MLS veteran presence. I don't understand it concept from either person. I do wish him well. I hope he doesn't, get booed when he comes back here and gets a good ovation. I don't want any of that, especially when he comes and for the alumni stuff. And I just think the applause is now going to be less, and this has really put a sour taste in a lot of fans' mouths, and mine including.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. Coming to the alumni night, none of us had any idea that Ray was going to be announcing his comeback into MLS, and maybe Ray didn't even know at the time. But you talked about Bizo, upgrading Bizo from Ray Gaddis to Bizo earlier, Harry, and I think we did absolutely upgrade. I mean, definitely offensively. I mean, maybe not defensively, or not even not maybe. I mean, Bizo isn't as good as a defender as Ray Gaddis. I'll give Ray Gaddis all the credit in the world for how good of a defender he is, but offensively, yeah, I mean, gave nothing to the Philadelphia Union in that regards. But I wish Ray Gaddis all the best, and it is interesting to see what they're doing in Cincinnati.
To your point, Todd, Ray could have been a late sub for us, for Bizo. There was no reason for him to walk away. He was relatively young. I mean, I think he's somewhere in around 30, 31.
Yeah, he wasn't that old.
He wasn't old. And I don't remember why he left or why he said he retired, but obviously that was all BS because, obviously he was just worried about losing his playing spot, and now, I'm sorry, I liked Ray. It's kind of a if you're on my side, you're my brother, and if you're not on my side, you're the devil, and there aren't many people who. Like if Andre Blake were to leave and never come back, I would clap for that guy till my hands were red. Ray Gaddis never really earned that level of respect for me. So I hate to say it, Mike, but when he comes in, he's going to be just like any other opponent player. My back goes to him, and he stinks.
Well, I think the Union guys, if they gave service, I think you got to give them a little bit of applause and fandom, and him no difference, but just the level of appreciation he got before being like this kind of borderline Ring of Honor guy, that's out the window. But any player that's given good service to us, I think gets the applause when they come back, and I think he's not different there. I just don't know. There has to be something behind the scenes here because it just doesn't make any sense of why you would you were with the team the longest. They won their first piece of silverware, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm out. Like, that makes no sense to then just come back a year later.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I don't know if I think they gave him a 4-year contract, which that would only make sense for Cincinnati. Like, I don't know what they're doing. Like, I kind of understand it that way because I know the Union are not handing out 4-year contracts or a 3-year as we know now. Like, it's a business, and Ernst Tanner gets that to the right degree, but I don't think he was being edged out the door whatsoever last year. I just don't get the retiring thing. Maybe he wouldn't. Would he be here maybe coming in this year? I think maybe as a sub, and I don't know if that's just a role he didn't want to accept. That doesn't seem very Ray-like, but. It's baffling that it's Ray Gaddis who kind of you would thought was, oh, well, he'll be like the Union ambassador when he retires. He's the likable guy that everybody, like, when you meet him, he just has a smile on his face and is like the nicest guy. And it's just, this is a weird move for him.
Yeah, it was a 2-year deal with an option for the 2024 season that Cincinnati gave Ray Gaddis. So essentially a 3-year deal. And I believe Ray Gaddis said he retired for family issues. I think his mother was not in the greatest health, so he moved back to Indianapolis to be with his family. But then after a year, he comes out of retirement and now he's with Cincinnati. I mean, I guess Cincinnati to Indianapolis isn't that far away, so in that regards, it makes sense and everything. But I don't know. I think Ray Gaddis was probably told, yeah, you're not going to be a starter anymore on this team, and he didn't like that, and he went to go be happy with his family, and I guess had the urge. Chris Albright called him up, said, hey, we have a spot here for you in Cincinnati, and the rest is history, right? Let's just hope he doesn't score against us. But let's go ahead and move on. Like we talked about earlier, Brenden Aaronson being in the 1% of players around the world in pressure numbers. No surprise there, and that is why Leeds United are chasing the signature of Brenden Aaronson. Salzburg have already rejected an offer of $20 million. Now there are reports out there that Leeds United are going to offer $22 million for Brenden Aaronson, which Leeds United probably going to get that rejected because Salzburg said they are not selling Brenden Aaronson whatsoever because they are in the Champions League. And we were talking about this before the show, right, Michael? Where these clubs, these smaller clubs and these smaller leagues and everything, just to make it into the Champions League, that's a ton of money going into the club. But you have Salzburg case where now they're in the knockout rounds. That's even more money coming into them. So even if they don't beat Bayern Munich, they have 2 games in the knockout rounds against Bayern Munich. They can expand their brand even farther because everybody watches the Champions League. And if they give a good battle against Bayern Munich, which I think they will, I think that's only going to want players to sign for RB Salzburg even more. I mean, we've seen the likes of Mane, we've seen Haaland sign there, we've seen Naby Keita sign for Salzburg. They sign a lot of young players at Salzburg and then turn them into these superstars. Well, on their way to becoming superstars at these other clubs. So, I mean, I think if you're a young player, I think Salzburg's one of those clubs. Like we talked about, Ajax are up there as well. I mean, if you're a young player that wants to get developed at a good club, you definitely want to go to Salzburg. And ever since Brenden Aaronson left Philadelphia Union to go to Salzburg, I mean, his games went to another level. We've seen Brenden become a staple on the United States men's national team, whether as a starter or a bench option. I mean, he gives so much, whether he's starting or coming off the bench. And I think a lot of that's due to what he's been able to do offensively at Salzburg. And yeah, he was a good offensive player for us, but what Brenden Aaronson did off the ball is what made Brenden Aaronson get the move to Salzburg, in my opinion. But what are you guys' thoughts on Salzburg rejecting an offer from Leeds United? They're probably going to turn down this $22 million offer from Leeds United once they submit it. Philadelphia Union sold Brenden Aaronson for $6 million. There's $3 million worth of incentives added on in that deal, which can rise the deal to $9 million. And then the Union have a 20% sell-on clause. So, in my opinion, I said it last episode, I hope Salzburg holds on to Brenden Aaronson. I hope they give Bayern Munich a run for the money because that's just going to increase Brenden Aaronson's value even higher. And when teams spend the most money is in the summertime. So if a team comes in and says, hey, Salzburg, we're going to offer you $40 million from Brenden Aaronson. Oh, man, can you imagine what the Philadelphia Union could do with $10 million?
Good, Mike.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Harry. But yeah, I may be in the minority here, but I know with COVID, it's hard to see where the market is. I know it's a bit lower, but a product like Brenden Aaronson, who's also a men's national team product, which, let's be honest, that bumps up the price a bit. Where, as we've seen with Pulisic and Pepe, I just don't see 20 million being the highest it can be. I think double. I think even maybe 50 million. In all honesty, I think just what he's done, what he may be able to do. I agree with you, Todd. Like the rest of the season, if he does something in Champions League, if he does something in qualifiers here for the World Cup, he's definitely going to raise the eye. And I'm also one where I think it would be great to see him in the EPL, definitely in the top 5. Bundesliga, I think, would be a good transition from Austria. And with his technical skills, I think that would be probably the smoothest one. I get a little weary with Leeds because next year they shouldn't be a relegation team, but they're still relatively new back in the EPL, so they're definitely not firm in there yet in my eyes. I would hate for him to go from the highest to another. I think this is my controversial opinion. Basically, championship to me is very similar to the MLS level, so he's kind of back in there. I think, them holding out, hopefully other teams are interested. I think there's going to be bigger clubs interested or are interested in him. And, he's one of those names that is becoming it's becoming the point where they announced the men's national team camp, and it would have been a shock if Brenden Aaronson wasn't there. To the fact where if McKenzie wasn't there, I think we would have been a little shocked, but we'd been like, okay, it kind of makes sense, or okay, we can buy it. Versus now, Aaronson, he's right up there with Pulisic and Tyler Adams and Zach Steffen. He's like one of those like core guys, and I think a core guy for the men's national team was performing very well in Salzburg. And also, by the way, changed the playing style is completely different than it was at the Union. To be able to do that and do it so successfully in a different league very quickly is great. And I just think $20 million would have been a steal. I went for it with my European club Celtic when they sold Kieran Tierney for $25 million to Arsenal, which I thought was a steal to them. It turns out it was a huge steal for Arsenal. And it's just one of those things where they're maybe looking, oh, well, the club isn't as good, the league isn't as good, like SPFL, the EPL, it's not nearly as good. EPL to the Austrian Bundesliga, not nearly as good. This kid, just like Kieran Tierney, he is way better than the league, and that shouldn't be holding it back. So I expect we're going to get a lot more in terms of that sell-on clause. I think Red Bull's going to get a lot more, and like I said, at $40 million to me is the minimum, but I can see even $50 million and above, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, you've got an asset that is doing nothing but appreciating. It's like buying a piece of property in Atlantic City the year before casinos are allowed. I mean, you don't sell that to the first one that comes down the pike. You hold on to it. And just a little bit of trivia here, and Todd, I know I told you I wouldn't, but do you know that Brenden Aaronson scored against Brondby in the Champions League playoff game?
Oh, I knew they played each other.
So I was looking up info on him, and I'm like, holy crap, he scored against Brondby. Okay, so
to add to that, Harry, so did our guy, the new kid, Yuri. He scored in that. He was, I think, the only one to score in that aggregate.
Yeah, he scored the first goal against Salzburg.
So, but going back, I agree with Mike. I don't think they're going to sell him the Leeds. Leeds isn't going down, but they're going to be precarious for a while. They need to spend a couple of years there to get the EPL money so that they can stay up. Number one. Number two, I don't think that is the Red Bull model. My biggest concern is that Salzburg sells him to Leipzig at a discount, so that that's my only concern. So but if you're Salzburg, I mean, I don't know how you play it. I mean, are you beholden to Leipzig? Do you have to sell them to him? But I agree. I think you're going to see 40, 50. I was trying to look while Mike was talking to see, what are the amounts that people are going for. There's nobody going under 30, 40 million euros or pounds. So, why would you sell them for $20 million? I would hang on to him for the rest of the year. And yeah, in the summer, people are going to come knocking in. They're going to come knocking for the same reason that Chelsea overpaid for Pulisic. Pulisic was not worth $70 million. He was worth the U.S. market. And Brenden Aaronson, I mean, granted, right now he's the greater Philadelphia market, but that kid's exploding. So why wouldn't you sit back and yeah, I think a top 5 club, I think a Gladbach could be a great spot for him. I think, a team that's not necessarily – he's never going to play on a Bayern. He's never going to play on a City. So I don't even want to see him go there, even though I'm a huge Bayern fan. I'd like to see him go to a struggling for Europa League, Big Five, that's going to get $40 million, because I want to see this kid progress in stages. I don't want to see him get thrown in like the Pulisic and then, be hurt and have to listen to Tyler Adams. Look what Tyler Adams' game has done. He's playing in the Bundesliga. He's playing very successfully. Nobody's giving him any guff because, he's not an all-star, because he's not at the biggest teams. Weston McKennie, same thing. Schalke to Juventus. And Juventus, you could say, is one of the big teams, but he just doesn't get the – so that's what I'd like to see to happen to Brenden. I mean, he's just a great kid. And maybe he pulls his brother out too. We get another nice big transfer fee. And maybe his sister goes to the women's club and we get another transfer fee.
You get one. Yeah,
it's like over with transfer fees.
And Harry, to your point with, I think this at least proves that they're not going to do the wink deal with Leipzig, because I believe if there was a clause, a buy-on clause with Holland for Salzburg to Dortmund, and obviously Holland's going to go for buku bucks, but and I think they have another buy-on clause there now, but I digress. But that just proves that you would have thought, oh, Holland, he'll go to Leipzig if they were going to do that, but he was too big for that, and they had the buy-in clause. I think here it proves with the model they'll go, okay, well, why don't we actually just take the money now versus having them go to Leipzig for $5 million. And especially now that will raise some eyebrows of like, well, wait a second, like you had an offer for $22 million for the kid, like what's going on? So I don't think that's going to happen, which I'm glad about. So we don't have to buy any Red Bull jerseys again for him, and hopefully we can get a jersey that isn't a Red Bull for the kid. But that just wanted to add that on that, and with everything Harry said, I agree. I think you're going to see him progress a lot. I do think him being in the Champions League semis and him being a big reason why he's in the Champions League, they are in the Champions League semis, is is just expanding his brand further. That possibly a teetering Champions League club may be interested in him, or a Europa club.
Yeah, and last point, Pepe went for what, 18? He's got 7 caps. I mean, Aaronson's so much better than Pepe. If Pepe gets 18, Aaronson's got to go for a minimum of 25, hopefully between 30 and 40.
Yeah. Yeah, he proved himself in Europe while Pepe, and you know, it's early. I'm not gonna crucify Pepe, and going to Augsburg that's a tall order for the kid to produce immediately, as they're struggling to stay up. But Brenden, he's gone there, and Salzburg always wins it. They don't go to the semifinals. They don't do what they've been doing here. You saw what happened to Jesse Marsch when he went to Leipzig. Like he's already gone. Like the kid's gone through 2 coaches, has done really well and proven himself. So to be the same as Ricardo Pepi value, that's ridiculous to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's go on and move on to another topic. I know I'm going to cut out a topic here just because I know we're getting close to that time. So we'll talk about the new signing the Philadelphia Union are going to make, and we'll talk about Kacper Przybylko, and we'll start there with Kacper. So Kacper Przybylko has officially been traded to Chicago Fire for $1.1 million in GAM, which is set to be over 2 years paid, which I'm not a fan of that. I don't know how you guys feel, where I wish Chicago Fire would have given us that money all up front. But, you know, at least we got something, right, for Kacper. I talked to you guys before we started recording where I'd much rather have sold Corey Burke, but his market value wasn't there compared to what Kacper's was, because 1, he's going to pay for that international roster spot that Corey Burke takes. 2, you know, he can't stay healthy, right? And that's huge. Where you look at Kacper, that was a big thing. 1, we signed Kacper Przybylko, where he was set to probably retire if he couldn't get a chance with the Philadelphia Union. We saw him score 3 goals in 2 games for the Bethlehem Steel, gets caught up to the first team in 2019, scores 15 goals in 2019, scores 8 goals, I believe it is, last in 2020, and then 12 goals last season in MLS play. But this is a guy who wanted a guaranteed contract, and the Philadelphia Union didn't feel confident giving him a guaranteed contract. And I don't blame the team with his injury issues, because let's say one bad injury to his feet, and now he can never play again. But you gave Kacper all this money, and now you're out that money. And a team like the Philadelphia Union, who don't like to spend a ton of money, who don't pay their players in the top 10% in MLS, you know, to commit all that money to Kacper and one injury away, and now he can never play again. I mean, yeah, Jay Sugarman would not like that, in my opinion. And so I get why every single year the Philadelphia Union said, okay, here's an option. And granted, you know, Kacper, for the most part, since he's been here, he caught COVID, and then he hurt his foot in warm-ups against New York City in 2019 and missed both games in the playoffs. And so, other than those 2 things, you know, Kacper's played pretty much every single game. He's hardly getting substituted out. And so, I can understand why he wanted that guaranteed contract from the Philadelphia Union. I don't think, you know, there's a lot of people that say, oh, Kacper wanted to leave the Philadelphia Union. I don't think he said, here's my transfer request, I want out of the Philadelphia Union. I don't think that's how it went down. I think Kacper went to Ernst Tenner and said, hey, look, can we talk about a contract extension? Because after 2023, which is an option, I'm at a contract with the club. And Kacper, by the time that would end, he would be 30, 31 years old. And you know, that's not old in a sense. You see plenty of players still play at that age in Europe, but Kacper, compared to what he was in 2019 to what he was last season, yeah, you can say he wasn't the same player, blah, 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 because he didn't score the same amount of goals. I don't know. I think Kacper might have been as good as he was in 2019. I think my argument for that is because the Philadelphia Union created a lot less chances this year than what they did in 2019. The Philadelphia Union scored a lot less goals this season compared to what they did in 2019. My only argument against Kacper, and I'm sure I've complained about him in older episodes and everything, but my one argument about Kacper is that I don't like how Kacper misses a chance and then it takes him out of his game. I think it's very, very psychological for Kacper because we've seen it multiple times. He misses one chance and his body language is horrible. And then he gets another chance and now he misses that chance. And it's because I think he still can't get over that first chance that he misses. And maybe that's me just guessing, but I don't know. I've seen it multiple times, and I'm sure people of this podcast have seen it multiple times. As soon as Kacper misses that one chance, he's sulking, he's cussing, he's yelling on the field because he missed that chance. And I think if Kacper could get over that, I think he could put the ball in the back of the net a lot of times. I know a lot of people say, oh, he's slow at getting the ball out of his feet, which, yeah, at times he is. His touch isn't the best. Yeah, I agree with that too. But, you know, he was the best goal scorer for the Philadelphia Union. That's something Sergio Santos couldn't say. That's something Corey Burke couldn't say. Julian Carranza in his 2 seasons with Inter Miami, his 3 goals in 38 appearances, he can't say that. But, you know, I'm not going to get on Julian Carranza because he was with a terrible Inter Miami team. I think we're all going to be surprised with how well Julian Carranza plays this season. People I know talked about, oh, well, what are we going to do defensively now that we lose Kacper? Because Kacper was always back there on corner kicks. He was usually one of the first people to head the ball out of the box because of his height. And Jim Curtin said last week in his press conference that Julian Carranza is learning all the cues for the pressing system. He's learning all the defensive work he has to do when he doesn't have the ball. So I think Julian Carranza is going to step into that Kacper Przybylko role. No problem. I think he's going to put the ball in the back of the net. And I know a lot of people say, well, look at what Kacper did at the end of the season when we switched to the 4-3-2-1. And yeah, you're right. With 2 10s, they should be creating a ton of chances. And we talked about this again before we started podcasting, where Jamir Montero, yeah, he played as a 10, but he wouldn't stay centrally. He would drift out wide. He would go wide left every single time, where Daniel Gazdag would be the one that would stay centrally. And I'm sure part of that was tactically and everything, but Jamir Montero wasn't creating the chances that he was used to getting in 2019. Daniel Gazdag towards the end of the season was creating a lot of chances. And I think if Kacper would have been on this team and this season with Julian Carranza, with this new signing, I think Kacper would have been back to scoring a ton of goals that we're all used to him scoring. I mean, look, you add in those goals that he scored in the Champions League. Kacper Przybylko is your striker that you want to score 15 goals. He had 6 goals in the Champions League, 12 goals in the regular season, 18 goals. I mean, it's a ton of goals, and we've all been screaming for a striker that can score 15 plus. We had that in Kacper, but look, I get it. He wants that guaranteed contract. Ernst Tanner said, no way, I'm not giving you that. And he only has 1 career, so I get 100% where he's coming from. And for teams fighting for him, like he said in his social media post, like he said in that interview that he gave, that one team actually fought for me, the other team didn't. I get why he wanted to sign with Chicago Fire. I don't blame him for that. But, you know, he's not a Philadelphia Union player anymore, and I wish him well. I've stood up for Kacper multiple times when people act like Kacper Przybylko is the worst striker on this team, but to get $1.1 million for a player that we got for free, that's terrific business for Ernst Tanner and the Philadelphia Union, and to see the Philadelphia Union already put that money to use, I mean, that makes me even more happy, and I wish Kacper the best in Chicago. I would not be surprised if Kacper is back to scoring 15, 16 plus goals in MLS, and I kind of do hope that he scores that many goals in MLS because of all the people that are acting like Kacper was the worst player in the world. And, you know, yeah, it would suck if Kacper Przybylko beats the Philadelphia Union, but I don't know, there's a part of me where I wouldn't mind Kacper scoring 2 goals, 3 goals against the Philadelphia Union in one game, just because the amount of people that have been giving it to Kacper Przybylko on social media here lately. But what are you guys' thoughts on the Philadelphia Union officially trading Kacper to Chicago Fire and getting a good amount of change for him?
So I'll start off. I've read what GM is 3 times now, and I'm still not 100% sure. I know you can use it to buy down DP players, and I think you can use it at Chicky and Pete's on every other Friday night. But outside of that, I'm not sure exactly what it is. Look, Chicago's leading goal scorer had 8 goals. Okay, they needed a goal scorer. They wanted to throw a ton of money at Kacper. You know, Todd, I've listened to your podcast. I've listened to you defend Kacper. You know, I know you've made this point. In the last 3 years, he's the top 3. He's number 3 in goals scored in MLS. And that's behind Joseph Martinez and the guy from Seattle, who, I mean, it's not like it's Joe Schmuckatello and John Doe. I mean, these are good players. If you add in his assists, he's like top 5 in total scoring over the last 3 years. So, Kacper, thank you for everything you've done. You're not worth the guaranteed money. We're sorry. You know, on this one, it's okay to shake hands like men and say, hey, we wish you well. When Kacper comes in, I probably will applaud for him the first time. After that, he goes on the list. But no, I mean, Kacper did, you know, he was a man about it. I want more money. Other people want to pay me more money. Will you guys pay me more money? The union said no. Now, behind the scenes, we didn't know that they were going out and getting 2 people. And listen, when February 26th rolls around, which is in a little over a month, we may not be ready. But I think you're correct. I think Carranza, I mean, if you just look at career-wise, you know, goals per 90 minutes, they're relatively the same. And then if we are really signing this kid out of Denmark, I mean, this kid, he scores a half a goal a game per 90 minutes. So, you know, there are the upgrades we're looking for. Yeah, we would have loved to have gotten rid of Corey Burke. You know, I could put Corey Burke on my front lawn, and I think he'd still be sitting there after a week. So nobody wants him. He's going to have to come back and prove it. Sergio Santos can't stay healthy, can't stay on the pitch. I love Sergio Santos, but he's just, you know, we needed an upgrade. Unfortunately, Kacper wanted to leave, but I wish him well. And for Chicago, it's a no-brainer. You go from 2 guys scoring 8 goals to Kacper Przybylko, who scored 24 in a season. That's where you put your money. I'm sure everybody right now is thinking that it's a win-win. We'll probably suffer for the first couple of weeks as these guys get acclimated, but you know, eventually they'll turn around, and I think we'll all be happy.
Yeah, to the point where the all-time, he being the second leading all-time scorer, he's right behind CJ Sapong, who I think is a good kind of parallel for him. I think most of us would agree he's better than CJ Sapong. But at the same time, CJ Sapong has, and Grant, I looked this up, as Harry and I and you were talking before this, of who has the most goals in a season for the Union. It's CJ Sapong. So he had a few great years with us, where it kind of gets forgotten. But he scored goals for us. Kacper scored goals for us. During that time, not a lot of people were upset that CJ Sapong was leaving. And before this deal was even rumored, what was our need? It was a striker. Well, if we need something for a guy who, you know, is the second all-time leading, it just shows that there's still a need there, that he's not fulfilling it completely. To me, he's just getting slower and slower. He's an old 28. I think the injuries have kind of caught up with him, sadly. I think, you know, he struggled to get time. Like you guys are saying, like, his career was kind of saved by the Union. He was bouncing around in the Bundesliga too, which there's no shame there. We got Leon Block from the Bundesliga too. It's a good league, but he was bouncing around. The only time he's ever scored goals was like in the tier 4 of Germany before here. He found a niche. He's a guy that you really have to set up. He does not create his own shot, which I think is really kind of the staying point with me. We need a guy that, we don't need, you know, a Ronaldo or a Messi, but we need a guy who can somewhat create his own shot, and he can't even somewhat create his own shot. And the biggest point with me too is I really do like Sergio Santos as well as your second striker on the field, or he has a great eye of like, oh, if I can set up Kacper, I'm going to set up Kacper. If I can set up somebody else, I'm going to set up somebody else. He has almost a pass-first mentality, but he's not afraid to shoot it at the same time. And that's great. I don't think that's your first kind of striker on the field. I think that's a guy that you compliment. I think Mikael here from Denmark, I think maybe he's the guy that will work probably better with Sergio and maybe better with overall with the Union. You've got a lot of guys now servicing well. Montero can pass very well. Gazag got some great passes. Even Martinez has some great ones in there as well, and in our center back. So the excuse that maybe in the past that like DJ could have, where I just not getting the service. Kacper, I think, was getting the service most of the time. There were some times where he wasn't, but like his finishing was, and he really needed it set up very well. And the final thought is, this is, at the end of the day, it's a business for these guys as well. Us going, oh, well, you're saying no to a 1-year deal while he's getting, 2 or 3 from, I think it's 3 from Chicago. I think guaranteed money, you have to take that if you're him. And you never know with Chicago. They could end up being a good team coming forward if they have some good guys on that roster. Yeah, I don't think they're going to compete with us, but overall, for a guy who's bounced around as much as he has, for a guy who was like on the Union too at the beginning, he did not come here with any high aspirations from us, and it was kind of a shocker to get on the Union, to now leave and be getting that amount of money and for himself and then for us. It's a great win-win. Nothing but respect for him, but it's the same thing with CJ. There was a need for an upgraded striker that we've been kept saying, and maybe we got it now. Well, time will tell. But we're making the moves to do it. But everybody wanted that, so he wasn't the guy for that. But all the best from him. He really made the best out of the situation, which should deserve applause there. No one seemed to like give him any shot. Ernst brought him over basically Union 2, and he ends up being the second leading goal scorer all time for us, and helped us win a supporter shield and a long playoff run twice. I think that's worth a loaner thing.
Absolutely. And I do want to go back and correct myself. I said Kacper scored 6 goals in the Champions League. It was actually 5. So that puts him at 17 goals total for the 2021 season. My apologies there. But finally, let's go ahead and talk about the Union's new signing. It has not been announced yet by the club, but according to multiple reports, the Philadelphia Union are set to sign Brondby striker Mikael Uhre for a fee of $3 million with a transfer fee of potential of $3.8 million if certain incentives are met. He's a 27-year-old striker, 14 goals and 26 appearances in the 21-2022 season, 21 goals and 34 appearances last season for Brondby. Capped 1 time for Denmark's national team, 34 matches played last season, 26 matches played this season. So the guy is very consistent in getting in the starting lineup and playing in general. The Philadelphia Union beat out the likes of Norwich City, St. Etienne, and Ligue 1, and a team from China and Saudi Arabia for his signature. And just looking, he looks like a super fast player, has good hold-up play, and seems to be a clinical finisher, especially the last 2 seasons. According to a lot of Brondby fans, his finishing gets better and better, and that's exactly what the Philadelphia Union needed. And I'll save my thoughts for another podcast on this signing and everything. I'll get your guys' thoughts on this signing of Mikael Uhre. It seems like it's a fantastic signing for the Philadelphia Union. He's going to be a DP striker. What have we been all asking for is a DP striker, and we finally get one in Mikael. And he's only 27 years old, and I think he's going to pair well with Julian Carranza. Have Sergio Santos come off the bench, go at tired legs. Yeah, I think this is a fantastic signing for the Philadelphia Union. And like I said at the beginning on paper, it seems like the Philadelphia Union had the best team they ever had. I'll go with you first. Harry, your thoughts on the signing of Mikael Uhre?
Yeah, I'm ecstatic. I mean, this guy, last 2 seasons in league play, 30 goals, only 2 on penalties. So, 28 goals from the run of play. The last 4 seasons, he's averaged half a goal per 90 minutes. He didn't play that much in 18-19, 19-20. Not sure why, but the last 2 seasons, 2,600 minutes and 1,200 minutes. In a good number of matches, he started every match. This is exactly what we asked for. It doesn't seem like we gave up the world for him. Like I said earlier in the thing, in Ernst we trust, and I just have to talk Michael not buying his jersey.
That was where I was going to start, Harry. If it was any other person that I would buy his jersey, but with my powers of Chase Simpson and everything, I cannot in good consciousness buy this man's jersey and ruin his career. But I'm with you, Harry. I'm ecstatic. He's exactly the kind of striker we want. Like with being realistic. I know maybe like the casual fans will be like, well, why don't you get like so and so like like a Higuain where it's a cigar in his mouth kind of player. That's not who we need. We need a guy that's like, this guy really reminds me of a Gazdag signing where it's like, wow, he was doing great. He was doing wonders in his league. And player of the season thing as well. He had the golden boot. And then we get him to come over here. And yeah, his end game's probably to go back to Europe. That's fine. Like, that should be his end game. But to be here and have the service he's going to have, and knowing that like the finishing that he can do consistently, it seems like the last 2 seasons he's really been doing it. I don't think this kid's a fluke. He's 27 years old, so he's a bit polished, but he's also not, an old man. I really am excited for the signing, and let's not be dummies. The timing of this is directly with Kacper. They had this guy, Ernst had this guy, I think, in his sights. He probably needed the money or the know-how that Kacper was officially gone, so we could get this guy on the roster. We wanted that DP guy. Realistically, I just don't think you're going to get another a huge name. So you go after these kind of guys. And Ernst, like Harry said, and Ernst we trust. He's bad at almost 1,000 on these. He may have had like a couple of small misses, but he sets them up that they're usually really good. And I think this guy's going to be the same. And I also finally really like the timing of this, not only with the Kacper, but let's see, that this is getting announced in late January. So you'll have a month. So maybe the first couple games he's still getting acclimated, but at least he can get in there beforehand and kind of get used to it. And yeah, he's I think he has one call this year, or I should say last year, 2021, from Denmark. So he's gotten the recognition there, and Denmark are not lightweights in terms of their players there. So I don't know if this is going to stop it or not. I honestly don't think it will. But he's getting that recognition, but he doesn't have, I think, as much mileage as Gazdag did, and the timing isn't as bad as Gazdag was. At the same time, if this guy isn't scoring goals from the get-go, we got to give him a chance here. But I really do expect that this is a huge deal. I think this is exactly what the Union needed. And like I said before, it may not be the sexiest signing. And we saw what happened with sexy season signings. They may not go directly the way they should. So, but I think it's perfect. This is a team that's contending right now. We'll see what happens with Kai Wagner. That's, I guess, the last question mark if he stays or if he goes. But other than that, you have your center backs back and happy. They're got paid. Blake is back. Bedoya looks like he's back. You got the young kids ready to go, and you needed a striker. You got a striker. Montero's back. Everybody, I think, we're set to really contend this year again. So I think the golden period continues, and I think this guy is really going to be a wonder for us.
Yeah, I think that's why Real signed. I think Real signed because something's going on with Wagner.
Yeah, and like you guys were saying, I think we got to give Real a shot. I think, Todd, you said like in his game, I think it was against LA, he played very well. Also, Nathan Harriel for getting thrown into the fire ×10 in the conference finals. I thought he had a solid game. I think these kids have a shot. Maybe you get another Alvis Powell type to just kind of be the veteran guy and the bench guy if you need him. MLS, just like any other league, has a long season. So you do need maybe that veteran there to help them out. But yeah, I think I'm really excited for the season, and who thought that we would actually be excited for our offense this year?
Yeah, no kidding. Two things I would add, though, is one, our Brondby, this should get fans extremely excited. They play a similar style to the Philadelphia Union, a pressing style. So to have our striker come in and already be used to pressing, where, yeah, he has to learn our cues and everything when we press, where the areas of the pitch we want him to press at. Yeah, he needs to learn that stuff. but he's already used to pressing. So I think that's a big win right there, where I don't think Daniel Gazdag was doing as much pressing in the Hungarian league when he was there. So yeah, he had to get used to everything with the way that the Philadelphia Union were playing. But we have another player coming in here before the season even starts. So he gets to come into training camp, learn everything with the Philadelphia Union. And here's the thing I'm most excited about, right? Is Brondby's season's midway through. This guy's coming into us in form already. He's coming in fully fit, fully healthy already. And our game February 26th against Minnesota United, wouldn't you guys love it if he scored a hat trick? Because this guy's already in form. He's already fit. He's playing some of his best soccer that he's played in his career right now. We're getting a player of the year from the league in Denmark coming to the Philadelphia Union. And let me remind you guys, the last player that came from Brondby that won player of the year was Hani Mukhtar, who played for Nashville FC. And we saw what he did last season with Nashville, where, in my opinion, he should have won MVP. But, of course, they gave it to Carlos Heel. Could Mikael Uhre be that guy? He could. I don't want to put too much pressure on this guy, but yeah, I mean, it is already pressure enough on this guy when you're paying $3 million for him. But any last thoughts on the signing? Anything else you guys want to get in before we wrap up?
Yeah, just one quick thing, Todd. And again, thanks for having us on. This was a lot of fun. But we completely, in my whole rant there, Julian Carranza is a guy that I just completely am ignoring that. Like, so is he going to be coming off the bench? That's insane. I know he didn't live up to the potential in Inter Miami, but I will give him a pass and a half that he did not live up to the potential in that dumpster fire. Like, they do not know what they're doing. Now, granted, that may mean that they may overpaid for this kid, but I think this kid is very talented. So him either coming off the bench or maybe Sergio comes off the bench, which he's shown that he can do very well. I think, him and Uhre, it's really exciting to have options now up front, and also to remember to having Montero and Mbaizo's more of a back that can push up front, and Gazdag's shown that he's really good at passing to those players to help them get in that position. I think this is exactly what we needed. I think Tanner's really targeting what we needed, and now I'm with Harry. Maybe Real is gone, and maybe Real's going to have to step up, and Wagner's gone. And best of luck if Wagner decides to. It makes sense, that's why these guys come, is to be able to go back to Europe, or at least have the security that Przybylko got. It makes sense, but if that happens, hopefully we get the piece that we need. But other than that, I'm very excited for the Union season.
Yeah, real quick. Number one, Todd, thanks for this. Number two, yeah, I had a brain dump. Obviously, Michael's played 16 games because their season is ongoing. So, but overall, very positive on this team. I see the only potential hole is if Wagner does leave in the January window. But again, in Ernst, I trust. Yeah, up front, it's going to be very good. And as much as I'm going to miss not playing in CCL, I mean, our guys aren't going to be playing 40 games next year or 50 games next year. And so, I'm looking forward to a good season and looking forward to catching up with all you guys at Subaru Park.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to have you guys back on the podcast and talk about a game. I mean, you guys are a blast to talk to, and it is a lot better just talking about soccer instead of feeling the pressure of a trivia show. So I thank you guys for coming on, actually, not participating in a trivia show. But where can people find you guys on social media? I'll go with you first, Michael.
Yeah, so I'm MBS Union, at MBS Union on Twitter, and that's kind of, I really keep that as mainly a soccer and primarily a Union one. I think Union Twitter is great. I know there can be some knuckleheads in there, but honestly not that many, and just a lot of fun there. So I implore anybody who is a Union fan that may either have a Twitter handle or not, it's great either watching a game or with news. There's some great guys out there, self included, Todd. It's just a lot of fun, and it was a lot of fun yesterday with the news going with Przybylko and then Uhre. So. But other than that, I don't do anything. But I do know that there is a good place to get your consulting work.
Thanks, Mike. On Twitter, I'm HMumma3, and that's basically all I do for soccer. And yeah, I spend the majority of my time with my consulting company, Greatham Consulting. So thanks, Mike, for that plug. Your cigar's in the mail. And
thank God.
Todd, thank you very much. I enjoy your podcast. I think you're just absolutely killing it. With the off season has been just as good as during the season when you have people on to talk about the other teams. You haven't missed a beat, and I'll be looking forward to your Minnesota preview and the Minnesota win recap soon.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't wait. It's everything's like coming so fast and everything, and I appreciate the kind words from you guys and for all the people that are listening. And Michael, I think you were going to say.
Yeah, I just have one quick thing. I'm probably not the only one wondering this. Did that guy private message you, the guy with that was the agent with the parent? Yeah. Did that guy ever privately message you? Because he shot you down quickly.
Oh, yeah. He talked to me multiple times. So, I'll go ahead and let me pull up Twitter right now and see what he said to me. Yeah, I know when I came up and said Benjamin Tita, like everything lined up right. And I was like, I think my rule of thumb is when everything lines up that perfectly, don't believe it. So that's what I'm going to go off from now. But he said, I didn't say much because it's his first deal, and naming players can ruin transfers for a number of reasons. I've seen players agree to join a different club whilst doing the medical. Yes, the player is currently in Ghana. The deal was done early in December. International clearance was granted in December. Deal will go through late January 23rd. The deal will be announced. He is a young player, and the wages show he'll be in the first team, but I don't know. He said it's a lot of money and wages to commit to a player in U2. He said it's a free transfer, and he says it's a 6-figure annual deal. He said that the agent is UK-based and that he expects more Ghanaians to join the Philadelphia Union's team in the next few seasons. So
wow.
That's what he told me. So we will see what happens. We'll see if the player gets announced January 23rd. Yeah, I do feel dumb, but we saw a lot of hit and misses over the offseason.
No, you broke that story, though. That's wild.
Yeah. So it's all good, right? It's silly season, as we call it. But if you guys aren't following the podcast, follow Free Kick Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Wherever you get your podcasts, the Free Kick. And like I told you guys, had a blast having you guys on. I appreciate all you guys do with listening to the podcast, interacting with me on social media. It's always fun talking Union soccer with two people that know a lot about soccer, that have been around the game for so long. And you guys made this a lot more enjoyable than the trivia show, I'll say.
My heart rate was down big time.
So with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.